I'll start with a dodgy pun because bees this weekend, but I think everyone's here still buzzing after Wednesday night's game. How yeah, I know it's bad, wasn't it? How difficult is it though after a game like that, which has taken so much out of you, I guess, physically and emotionally, to then get prepared for another game so soon?
Yes, one of the challenges that we face, I think, going into this game. I think the players would have felt the high of the game. I think there's always that. Certainly, as a player, I felt that. After any game, there's always a come down, but I think it will be a steep one after the Liverpool game. And I think our challenge this weekend is to find a way to hit the same levels of intensity and mental qualities that we showed on Wednesday so quickly.
Bearing in mind everybody played well on Wednesday night, what's your thinking and behind changing the team? Because obviously, as I mentioned, a lot of physical issues after the game. You'd have thought just players tired after the game. So what's your thinking behind that?
Yeah, again, that's something we're going to discuss at length today and try and find the right balance between change and consistency of selection. I think there's a few things to note. There were some tired bodies in the team. After the game, Sandy was getting cramped with about 10-15 minutes to go. Anthony Gordon was fatigued at the end of his performance, which was very, very good. And naturally, when you empty like that and you give so much to the game, there's going to be a hit. And I thought Alex worked extremely hard, and he was tired at the end. But our job is to refuel, regroup, and go again. What's another great opportunity for us.
I know you spoke after the game about that consistency word. It's something that comes up quite a lot, and I guess there was a huge contrast, wasn't there, particularly between that game and the West Ham home game. Palace, I suppose, a different game in between as well. Brentford provides a different test again, I suppose, and bearing in mind that their home record too. What do you take from the Liverpool game that you need to sort of bring into the Brentford game to maintain that consistency?
I think, as always, it's attitude. Attitude is everything to any team. Against Liverpool, you saw the correct attitude. You saw the correct mental preparation from the players. When we entered the pitch, I had no doubt in the early exchanges of the game that we were in a good place. Really good energy, bite in midfield, desire to win the ball. We were really good in duels. And gradually, then, when you're good in those small areas, your bigger performance looks different. And I thought athletically we looked really good. The running speed of our front players, the battling qualities of our midfield against a top team. I thought we, especially in the first half, won that battle in there.
I wanted to ask you about Fabian Schär as well. I was going to even before that equaliser on Wednesday evening, just because of what he brings to the side as a centre half, but also so much more than that. And he's important to you, so important to you in an attacking sense as well, isn't he? I mean, he probably is the biggest bargain, bearing in mind what he cost in the Premier League, isn't he?
Well, he's got to be up there, looking at the histories of transfers. I think, Fabian's got those midfield qualities at centre-back. He's got the creative eye that has been so important for us in our build-up phases. I think I was sat here the other day and asked questions about our attacking output, and I think part of my answer was that everyone attacks, everyone has a responsibility to attack. I think Fabian really carries that burden, and how he distributes the ball and his creative eye. I thought he used the ball really well against Liverpool, both long and short. It's not always the long pass that's the effective one, it's the short ones that can connect. But his goal is sort of rounding everything up. It's just a great example of him. I mean, how he scored that goal from that angle is beyond me. Certainly not something I could do as a centre-back. But he has that technical ability to adapt, and he scored some wonderful goals for us.
Brentford's home record's the best in the Premier League, as you'll be well aware, and they also have a bit of a reputation for coming out of the traps very quickly and scored a lot of very early goals a bit earlier in the season as well. So I guess that sort of plays into your thinking in terms of how you really need to start the game well, obviously.
Well, I think whenever you go away from home, the intention that you set in the game is key. The early exchanges give you a lot of clues to how the game's going to go. We need to start well. As you say, Brentford has scored a lot of early goals. We're well aware of that. They're still a very good set-piece team as well, so we're going to have to be on our guard.
And at the end of the weekend, you could be in 13th place. You could be as high as 5th. It's a little bit ridiculous how congested it is there now. But I guess looking at that table, it just shows that the opportunity is there. Put a run of results together, and you can be flying.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs and buts there, and I think the key for us in this moment is to be optimistic. I think is to be very, very positive, because the opportunities are there and we have to take them. The best way to take them is to be very glass half full. What's happened has happened this season. We've been slightly inconsistent. We've been at times really good, at times not so good. But that's in the past, and I still believe that we're going to get better through the season. I still believe there's more to come. So I'm very positive about what we can deliver.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Keith?
Eddie, you mentioned the come down that you would expect after a match like that. Just to give us a little bit of insight, when the games are so close together and you've got a big game like that preceding Brentford away, what do you do behind the scenes? Do the lads train at all, or what do they do in terms of recovery?
Yeah, they do loads of the classic recovery tools that we use. So we've got really good facilities now internally. So ice baths, and we've got leading massage therapists and lots of different tools that we use, infrared, etc., etc. I could go on, cryotherapy chambers, and the lads utilise all of those things. But nothing beats good old-fashioned good diet, sleep. They're the fundamentals, really. So yeah, we hope that physically we'll be fine. Mentally, there's work for me to do to try and get the players in the right place. But I think a lot ultimately falls down on the individual players. The individual players have to know that we have another game, and for me, there's no category of games. Every game is of equal importance. This is a massive one for us. We need to find a way to win. And as I said earlier, with the league being so tight, that can make a big difference.
You've beaten Arsenal at home, Spurs at home, Chelsea at home in the Cup. Obviously drawn against Liverpool, could easily have won that match, but then you've slipped up against West Ham at home, Brighton at home, lost against Fulham away. Are you scratching your head as to how that has come around this season?
Yeah, to a degree, yes, because I think those games that you mentioned where we haven't performed at our best are still a big frustration for me. I don't want to use cliches, so I'll try and stay away from them, but the Premier League this year has been not just us that's been in that position. The most consistent team have been Liverpool, and that's why they are where they are. And the challenge for everyone in the league is to find that run, and we're very much a team in that mould, and we have the ability to do it. We need the mental qualities to be as good as our qualities in other areas.
Is it a worry for you that that's been the case? And it feels as though, from the outside looking in, it feels as though the team are performing better against the so-called bigger teams.
I think that's been in our makeup for a while, and it is a frustration because we know what we're capable of, and it's the missing ingredient is to try and deliver that regardless of who you're playing and regardless of where you're playing. I think we had that in our Champions League season, and that's why we were able to achieve what we did that year. I think regardless of opposition, it didn't really matter. You saw the same Newcastle week in, week out. It's not for the want of trying. I can tell you the players are all committed to delivering that. Sometimes, for whatever reason, things happen. I think for now, and we can't go back, is trying to affect the future and try and make sure that we are finding solutions to problems and trying to make the players aware of what we need to do.
The performance of all the team, but particularly Alexander Isak must have really buoyed you the other night. He was unplayable at times against Virgil van Dijk. On that form, do you think he is the best striker in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think I've asked that question a couple of weeks ago, and I'm reluctant to sort of now answer it in the same way. I think Alex has got undoubted qualities. He is, as you say, on Wednesday night, I thought he was irresistible. The challenge for him, as well as the team. And he is probably more reliant on the team than anyone else because he's at the top end of the pitch. But it's to try and find the keys to delivering that week in, week out, which is very hard to do because obviously teams are focused on stopping him. But he makes a big difference to the team when he's in that kind of form. And I think that was shown best by his goal. What a strike that was. Not just the strike as well, but the pass from Bruno, the movement to receive the ball in the way that he did. And I think when you see Alex and Anthony and Jacob Lincoln play in the way that they did, hopefully great signs for us in the future if we can find the environment to give them the platform to perform like that.
We've not seen Sandro and Bruno in the same team too many times, particularly with Bruno and Sandro, should I say, in the six, if you like, that he was the other night. How pleased were you with the way the two of them operated together, and does that give you real food for thought moving forward?
Yeah, I thought the midfield three worked really well. I think they had to in that game. Liverpool are very good in midfield. They have a lot of movement and rotations in there themselves. So I think we had to find a way to trying to control that midfield area. And I think the biggest compliment I can give them against 3 really good opponents, I thought we were very good in that department, especially in the first 45 minutes, as I said. I thought their positioning on the pitch was really good. There was a lot of fluid movements, a lot of rotations, but still the structure was what I wanted it to be. So, yeah, great signs for the future. I think Bruno ends up creating 1 goal from the 6th position, 1 goal slightly higher up, and that's great to see.
Just finally from me, Kieran missed out the other night. I think you said afterwards it was illness. How is he now ahead of tomorrow's game?
Yeah, he's improving.
Yeah. Do you expect him to be in the squad?
We'll see today.
Okay, cheers, Eddie. Thank you.
No problem.
Andy?
On Eddie, you talk about attitude so far. I noticed the War Flags display on Wednesday changed and it read "Get into them." Was that the sort of attitude that you saw from your players throughout that game? Do you think that message?
Yeah, I think that's always our intention. That was our intention against West Ham, and I thought, judging that, if you watch that game back, taking the goals out, I think for 60 minutes you'd have seen that. No one really wants to talk about that after the game because we've lost, and I understand that. But that was very much, especially in midfield again, especially in that area where the duels, the challenges, the loose balls, the second balls are going to end up. I thought invariably the 3 midfielders picked up a lot through determination, athleticism. That get into them psyche is where we want to be. We want to be a progressive team. We don't want teams to enjoy playing against us. They're all really important qualities.
Dan and Bruno reached 100 Premier League appearances for Newcastle United. Both incredible players in their own right for Newcastle. Do those sort of milestones get talked about in camp by yourself to the players or not? And also, how pleased are you for them both reaching that milestone?
I think Bruno was certainly aware because he mentioned it. We had a discussion. Dan, no. But I think they're important to players. They were important to me. Not so much that when I was playing, looking at every game, how many have I played, but when a milestone was coming around or someone will make you aware of it, you think, that's nice, that's good. I'll appreciate that one day when I look back on my career. And I think when you play a certain amount of games for a team, I think it sort of solidifies your attachment to that team. I think both players have given so much and really contributed to our recent success. Both really passionate about Newcastle, both great people. They want to win, two absolute winners, and I hope they can keep going.
Speaking of Bruno, I asked you about this last week. He finally won a coin toss. I don't think it was lost on St James's Park or Dan, who seemed to celebrate in the huddle as well beforehand that he'd actually won one.
Yeah, I don't know, because I was asking a couple of questions about this. I don't know if it is Bruno winning or losing a toss. I'm not sure. As the home captain, that it's his call. I think it's more the away captain that makes the call. So I don't know if he's winning or losing. But certainly it's not been coming on our side. So that was good to see one fall in our favour.
I know we're talking about team news. Just on Sven Botman, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago that he's starting to resume a little bit of training with the first team. How is he getting on? What's the update on him? He's
doing well. So, yeah, the initial moments in training were very much passive and making sure he didn't do too many duels, working on his technical work. But now he's fully training. We've done a couple of 11v11s with him. He's looked good in those 11v11s. He's still a few weeks off playing competitively, but he looks and feels good. It's all about rhythm for Sven now. It's all about getting those game dynamics, the pitch geography back, things that he would normally do on autopilot. He needs to rediscover how to do it. But it's just been a big boost to have him in training. He's obviously a big guy. He's a big presence, and we've certainly missed him.
BBC Newcastle.
Hi, Eddie. You talked about the potential come down for the players following the Liverpool game and the importance of attitude. How do you manage the attitude and get it right for Brentford on Saturday?
Yeah, I think we've got some work to do in that respect because our game preparation yesterday was about recovery. Today is about our game prep and making sure we get the right messages to the players, the right tactical information, and always the right attitude. Attitude is the key defining factor to any game, and I think if you get that right with the ability we have, we back ourselves. So it's a tough assignment at Brentford. It always is. We've been there a number of times. We know what we'll face, and Brentford have been in good form this season. So I think it's a really good game for us to attack.
And obviously looking forward ahead of this to the quarter final. I mean, how much are you going to be able to learn from Brentford?
Yeah, I think you will. I think you always learn from every opponent. I think that's one of the beauties of the league, where the games come round and you tweak certain things. But the cup game's zero relevance to us at this moment. It's all about the Premier League and trying to lift ourselves up the table.
Thank you. We'll start with Louise and we'll go to Lee Ryder.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi, Louise.
You were brilliant in the first half against Liverpool. You didn't press quite so high up the pitch, and it was more of a sort of counter-attacking mode. I mean, do you feel that you're at your best, almost counter-attacking at times? And how do you want to evolve from that, and how hard is that?
A lot of questions in one there. I'll try and go step by step. I think against a team like Liverpool, there were moments certainly when we high pressed and we were really aggressive. But I think there's moments where you have to be smart, and I thought we were, especially in midfield. As I say, I thought midfielders got the balance and controlled those moments really well, because the impulse is always to go, but you've got to know the right time to press. Certainly there were some really key counter-attacking moments for us off the back of that. I think when we're at our best, we always have that element in our game. We've got pace, we've got technical qualities. I think counter-attacking is a real weapon for us. Probably haven't seen it enough, especially ending up in goals for us this year. I think we've had loads of really good moments where the last pass has eluded us or the finish hasn't quite been right. I think we need to be have the ability to play in every way. I don't see one phase of play being necessarily more important than any other. You have to counter-attack well, you have to defend counter-attacks well, you have to be good with the ball, you have to be good without the ball. The Premier League is such a test in every different way that we want to be multi-talented in every area.
And another question on a different theme, this Rainbow Laces campaign. I mean, it's obviously been quite contentious with Sam Wolsey and Mark Gay, and obviously there's also the thing about Stonewall and sometimes prioritising trans rights over women's rights, but that's a can of worms, we don't need to get into that vexed issue. But is it something that you would endorse and back and think it's important for football, or do you think football shouldn't be getting involved in it? And is there debate in your dressing room?
No, I don't think there's any debate in my dressing room, not that I've heard. For me, I think these campaigns are brilliant because it highlights awareness. And I think sport is a great vehicle to do that and to help society in any way that we can. I think we have to use sport for the good.
Thanks, Louise. Lee?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Sven Botman been pictured in training a few times. How much of a decision is that going to give you, given how good Dan Burn's been and how good Fabian's been this season?
Yeah, I think that's a long way off at the moment. But certainly if and when Sven returns at his best level, I just think he's a brilliant addition to the squad. And then it will be up to me to find the right balance in the team. But it's not something at the moment that is in my conscious thinking. My conscious thinking is very much in the next few games and step by step. But Sven was a massive player for us, and I don't think you can underestimate how much we've missed his certain qualities that he brought. The height, of course, but his technical delivery in our build-up was second to none. He had this beautiful switch of play that used to bring Kieran into play. In our Champions League qualification season, where we had a great dynamic on that side of the pitch, on the right-hand side of the pitch, a lot of the time through Sven's distribution. So I think we've really missed those qualities. And he's a great lad as well. He's very popular in the dressing room. So I think he's got a lot of key attributes that we've missed. But it's got to be right for Sven. He's got to build up in the right way, and we've got to look after him because it's not an easy injury or a simple injury to recover from. So he's now in the final stages. He's got to manage that situation well. We certainly don't want to make a mistake in the last few weeks.
Just on, obviously we've sat and watched the Simon Jordan interview with interest. Did you feel that was an important interview to do? Because a lot of the things he mentioned in that interview spoke about this narrative of being the richest club in the world. Did you feel it was important to get that out to the wider fan base, what you're actually dealing with in terms of finance and stuff like that?
I don't think that was necessarily my intention because I didn't know what questions he was going to ask. So I can't lead the interview in that way unless he asked, sort of goes on to that topic. I think it's always important for me to speak on behalf of Newcastle in the right way and to try and educate people on the truth behind the reality of how we're working and what we're doing. I thought it was a challenging interview, I have to say. I was exhausted after it, but pleased I got through it, hopefully unscathed.
Just finally, obviously Elliot Anderson and Minter got sold in the summer. It's something you didn't want to do. Going into this next window, are you concerned that you might have to do something similar to that with potentially sell another young player or sell someone you don't want to sell just to sort of balance the books, if you like?
Yeah, what I say on that is that trading is essential both in and out to the model of PSR. I think the days where teams don't sell players unless your revenue streams are so big are gone. So I think our revenue streams aren't where we want them to be. Ultimately, we're trying to grow them. So I think trading in and out is going to be essential. Hopefully it's not players that we're forced to sell like we were in that situation with a couple of days to go with deadlines approaching. Hopefully it's in a more stable setting, but you can't guarantee anything.
Thanks, Lee. We've got to Jordan, then Dominic.
Morning, Eddie. Just on the lack of consistency, is that down to mentality rather than ability this season? Is it harder for your team to get motivated against the likes of Brentford opposed to Liverpool, Manchester City?
Yeah, I don't think it's as clear as motivated. I think that would be, and I understand the question, but I think that would be an easy thing to say. I think it's the dynamic of those games is very different. The challenge of those games is different. We haven't adjusted well enough to those. But it's certainly not a case of the players aren't motivated for the games. It certainly can you can make that suggestion afterwards, but I think obviously internally, there's a lot more to the dynamic than that. The players want to do well, the players want to achieve, the players want to win. They're committed to doing that. I see that in their training, in the preparation, and then the delivery sometimes this season hasn't been right. And we try and find ways to improve that. But I have to make that clear, it's certainly not for a lack of motivation or a lack of desire.
And just on Sandro Tonali, it's felt like the last two games have been like a bit of a breakthrough for him. What has changed for Sandro?
I probably wouldn't put it that way. I think he's done really well in the last two games. I've been absolutely delighted with his performances. I think there's been most importantly for me, there's been a good dynamic in midfield. I think that's been really pleasing to see. It's not about the individual players when you're putting players together. It's about how that affects the team. So I thought the Chelsea game was just as good in the Cup. I thought he did really well there. I thought the Nottingham Forest performance off the bench, I thought he was a game changer there. So I think he's performed really well in recent weeks.
Thanks, Jordan. Dominic?
Just to follow up to that, why do you think it's taken so long for Sandro Tonali to be used in that sixth role and be used effectively?
Well, because we have Bruno in there who's been absolutely magnificent for us for a long, long period of time. So before changing the dynamic of that role for Bruno, which has been, you look at the best sixes in the Premier League, Bruno would be absolutely right up there for me. And he's the fulcrum of the team. So you change that dynamic and there's benefits, of course, if a player has different qualities, but there's also a knock-on effect the other way. So, but I felt that it was time to look at it, but it doesn't mean that that position has changed, because I think against Liverpool there was a lot of rotation. There was a lot of utilising players in different positions, so a different kind of structure for us.
And Brentford, one of the best attacking teams in the Premier League this season, despite losing Ivan Toney in the summer. They serve as a reminder of how teams can adapt and arguably improve to losing such important players.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think the game never stops, and you can't get fixated with believing one player makes the team. It's never that clear cut, and sometimes to evolve the team you have to lose a player and then you can bring a different dynamic to the side. So they've done that really well, Brentford. I have to say their recruitment always historically has been very, very strong. I think that's continued to be the case. They're a different team without Ivan in it, but they're still now, you can see with the goals they're scoring, a very effective team. Got a lot of pace in the front areas. Certainly a lot for us to try and control.
Okay, we've got to Chris, Luke and then Craig.
Morning, Eddie. You obviously asked about trading outwards. Have you been given a clear picture yet heading into January as to what exactly the position is? For example, can you bring someone in without moving somebody out, or does someone have to be sold for you to be able to bring players in?
You want a lot of clarity there, Chris. I'm not sure I can give it to you. Yeah, I mean, of course I know the picture. But the issue with PSR and the issue with our position is that nothing's ever clear cut, because it's not. I'd need some time to sit down and sort of go through everything with you, which I'm not going to do anyway. So that's irrelevant. We will try and do our best. I keep saying the same things. We'll try and do our best. Nothing's absolutely fixed at the moment. There'll be a lot of twists and turns, but the want from everyone internally is to try and improve the squad. If we can do, we will. If we can't, we won't.
Thanks, Chris. Luke?
What did you make of Anthony Gordon's goal celebration on Wednesday night?
What do you mean?
Blah, blah, blah goal celebration.
You'd have to show me, because
You want me to get up?
Please.
I'm not going to do that. I mean, this is,
I don't know.
You do not know?
Can you?
Well, it's just a rubbish question then. Start again. All right, well, we'll just leave that. Is the challenge for your top players, Anthony would fall into that category? He seemed to be saying there'd been a lot of talk. He did
There you go. There you go.
He did that. Blah,
yeah.
blah, 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 blah. See, I have done it. Is the challenge for all your top players, Anthony, Bruno, Isak, is it to do, the top players do it week in, week out? Is that what you want from them now? Because he has taken some criticism. They have taken some criticism.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, that's what they want. That's what we all want. Everyone connected with Newcastle want to see those players expressing themselves, free to play, and at their best. Now, during the season, you're always going to have ups and downs. There's always going to be good and bad phases for you. I think it goes with the territory. When you're performing well in the Premier League, you're going to be talked about. You're going to be talked about positively, and you're going to be talked about negatively, as we all are when you're out under the spotlight and in the news. So dealing with that, taking some stuff in, taking the majority of stuff away from your head is key, and then just enjoying your football. Ultimately, I think if the players are enjoying what they're doing, they'll play at their best level. So I think it's really simple formula really for us to try and help the players with. But I'll be really pleased to see him keep doing that celebration if it means he's scoring goals.
I think I've taken up enough of everyone's time, so that's me done.
Thank you very much.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning,
Just
Craig.
on the midfield three.
I was waiting for it, Craig. Good. That's good. I enjoyed that.
No midfield three. They're doing well. Yeah, you looked at Tottenham last night, and they've beaten Man City 10 days ago 4-0. They've then drawn at home to Fulham. They've then lost away to Bournemouth. And you could level that at you guys a little bit this season. And there's a word for that with regards to Tottenham. You don't want to get that word associated with your team. Is the difference between elite players? Elite players do it every week, and is that what you're going to tell those guys who think they are elite, without mentioning names? They do it every week, don't they? And at the moment, your top guys aren't, in a way.
Yeah, I think, as I said regarding Luke's question, I think the better players in the league are the better players because they repeatedly do it. It's easier to do it on the odd occasion here and there and show how good you are in phases. I have to say, though, I think last year and the year before, the players were consistent in that respect. It is harder for the more creative players to find that consistency because, of course, teams, as we do, will try and work out plans against you to nullify your strengths. But then you have to keep evolving your game and you have to keep finding ways to be effective. There'll be different reasons behind every individual's performance. I won't go into them, but there's always a story behind the player. It's not as clear as just, perform. The conditions have to be right. The player has to feel right. Everything has to be right for a player now to be at their very best consistently. And that's what we're trying to help them with. And that's everyone in the team. That's no individuals, from my perspective, pointing fingers at anybody. We all want the same thing, and we'll work towards that.
Thanks, Craig. Kieran, do you want to finish this off?
Morning.
Morning.
Is the way Newcastle are going to have to recruit going to be different moving forward? Obviously, we've seen in the past, maybe there's been a pattern in some ways. Does that have to change now?
It's a difficult one to answer. I think every transfer will be different. I'm not saying no to that. There may well have to be an adjustment, but I think it has to be taken on an individual basis. So signings for us like Willisula, which was very much with a view to potential in the future, and a player that we really like, will be a different kind of signing, of course, to Alex, who was brought in for the here and now and to hit the ground running straight away. But so I think it very much depends on what your need is. But I do get the question that if, PSR will continue to be an issue for us for the next few years ahead, that we're going to have to be smart. And I think that's the key thing. We're just going to have to be clever with what we do. Doesn't mean we can't make, hopefully, big signings and players for the here and now who are ready to play. But maybe not all under that category at the same time.
Face Brentford, are there learnings you can take from how they recruit and compete yet still?
Different dynamic, and I think different expectations. I don't think you can compare two clubs' recruitment really, because everyone has different objectives. I think they've recruited really smartly, and they obviously use a data model, and they've done it very, very well. We don't have those infrastructures in place. But I do think the expectations of both clubs are very different.